Ladies and gentlemen,
boys and girls, this is the moment you guys have been waiting for. Now, normally I would say this, welcome to Megacast with Paul Wilson and Bassett Houston.
Well, actually,
we have
no. I'm actually going to say that, but join us this evening for the very first time. Would you like to introduce our display pilot this evening, Bassett?
Yep, it's the one and only Jonathan
Flapjack Whaley.
Yep, coming all the way from Miss Demeanour.
Good evening, Jonathan.
Good evening.
What's your day been like, Jonathan?
That's been pretty good, especially the weekend coming up now. Yeah, no, I'm pretty relaxed.
Have you got much planned this weekend?
Going to try and organise some of the costings and things for displays that I've been asked to do, and sort out some airfields where I can operate from, and apart from that, fiddle around with some drawings and things around the house.
It's been rather dull up here because the weather was just, it was desperate to rain, but it didn't. But saying that though, it probably wasn't bad in Sunderland, hence why I'm wearing a Sunderland shirt.
You can't.
We've had awful weather down here, really dank, miserable, grey, drizzle, just not a day to be flying.
It's like, for a joke earlier on I said, Paul, I feel like I'm in China today. It's mainly because we're spotting that's German, then British, then now the livery looks Chinese.
Well, I'm just going to start it off here. Can you give us a little bit of history on Miss Demeanour, Jonathan? I know she's been around a long time, but can you give us a little bit of history just behind Miss Demeanour itself?
I mean, she's a hawker hunter. It's the single-seat sports car of the jets, really. Very simple to operate, simple to fly. And she was originally built way before you were born, in 1956, probably before your parents were born, in fact. And she was operated by the RAF. And her sort of career came to an end in the early 70s. She was brought back by the British Aerospace at the time and turned into a Swiss hunter and sold to the Swiss in 1972. And then in 1997 the Swiss started disposing of all their aircraft, and they gave them away and actually flew them into various countries in Europe to any collector who wanted one. And I had an acquaintance who was given one, and unfortunately wouldn't give it to me. I had to pay a little bit of money for it. And in 1997 I started turning it into Miss Demeanour, specifically for air shows. I'd done my own time in the Navy and got the T-shirt and what have you, and didn't want to paint in military colours, and spent 2 years coming up with a colour scheme for Miss Demeanour.
To be honest with you, I kind of like the livery. It looks like a proper bird. Like, you ever seen like all the films how like have all like the colours of like likes of toucans and all them. Looks like a bird in the sky.
I wanted something just completely different, and it doesn't look very much. It just looks like a sort of stick of rock on the ground, all the colours and things. So it's not until you get it in the air that you actually see the way the colours work and the way the shape of the paint scheme works. And for those of you who haven't seen it, I've plugged my own website, which is heritageaviation.com. You go there, you can see the colours of it. It took me 2 years to design the scheme.
2 years? That's a long time.
Now, what made you pick those colours, Jonathan?
The scheme started out, I wanted something which perhaps a Hell's Angel would do if he had something bigger to work with, all flames and different colours and flames licking down the side. And I started on that sort of idea, and the costs of airbrushing an aircraft were horrendous. And I came across an aircraft spare and said, listen, we need to simplify this. And it was just this sort of progression of flames. And then it ended up being what I call a re-entry sort of scheme. So that the front of the aircraft is white hot, and the nose is actually white, and it goes right through into dark reds. And then the background after that is just it's just sky with dark blue sky with stars on it. It's a progression, really.
The scheme reminds me of a bit of the space shuttle, because when that
Yeah.
re-enters the Earth's atmosphere, it literally
Yeah.
has like a white tail.
There's one very rude commentator who calls it the Zoom lolly.
But
If you remember. Go on.
it kind of reminds me of just a space shuttle when that just flips in the atmosphere, and
Yeah.
I mean it just ends up like land on the runway like plane, which is literally what every plane should be like: land on the runway and say, this and either. Reminds me a bit of the old space shuttle, Columbia Endeavour, etc.
Yep. I'm just going to say this, Jonathan, but do you have any future plans for Miss Demeanour at all?
Only sort of doing air shows, doing more, doing the air shows and things. I'm actually getting so many bookings now that I need other pilots to help me, because otherwise it ends up being every single weekend. And it's, much as I love flying, I wouldn't like to be out and about displaying every single weekend. And squadron leader Ben Murphy, who was the leader of the Red Arrows up until the year before last. Last season he helped me out with some displays down in Bournemouth. I'm hoping he'll be able to do some towards the end of this year. He's tied up at the beginning of this year. And I may have one other pilot coming along. Can't say much about that one, but yeah, it's looking like it's going to be a busy season, because the military aren't going to be doing many shows. They're pulling all their assets out of it, and so if a show wants a jet, then their choice is going to be fairly limited, and hopefully Mr. Demeanour will be top of the list.
Yeah, well, I've been asked, because I've been advertising this broadcast. Stephen Megacast has been doing it for us.
Thanks to Jake
But
Nielsen.
yeah, thanks to Jake and everything, the Megacast room on powertalk.com. But I've been asked, Jonathan, when can we actually see the calendar get released for 2013? The displays itself.
Yeah, on my website. Yeah, the calendar. There are lots of shows that are sort of asking what would be the budget sort of costs and things. I don't really want to sort of start putting up onto the calendar shows that I haven't got really quite a firm indication that they want me to display. And historically, we don't start getting that sort of commitment from the organisers until April or even into May. And for those shows that are going to be in September time, August, September, then it won't be until June, July before they commit to that one. One of the ones that I know that I have got committed for is in Northern Ireland, Newtonards. That's a definite one from there, and maybe Newcastle. So yeah, I'm hoping that again Blackpool's another one, Stockport as well. They'd like me to come up there together. Where else is that? I haven't done about Sunderland yet. East Fortune, I haven't been there for 2 years now. I'd love to go up there. It's always a good show up there in East Fortune in Scotland. So they come together slowly, but I don't want to sort of get people's hopes up and start posting up a show and then taking it down 3 weeks before the show comes on. They didn't book me.
Because did you know that Paul has a Facebook page called Air Shows UK? It's like me and Paul have like one. I've got a separate one called T&W Transport, which is something to do with the lower vehicles, like ground vehicles, something to do with buses. While as Paul's here, it's something to do with aircraft. So, heck, it's getting good, the Air Shows UK. It's nearly at 500 likes now.
Yep, we're actually hoping to get that before the airshow season starts in May. Now, I've been asked I was asked by one from Facebook, how did you actually get I forgot the other, Ben Murphy actually to fly Miss Demeanour?
How did we actually get him? It was when I told him what he liked to fly, he sort of said, how soon, how quick. It wasn't a question of getting him to fly. I'd seen Ben around and knew Ben for several years while he'd been leading the Reds. Quite often where the Reds were operating from, I'd be operating from. And so our paths crossed quite a lot, and I knew he liked Mr. Demeanour. And I liked him as a character. I liked the way he flew. quite a quiet sort of person, and that's the sort of person you need to have in the cockpit of a single-seat aircraft displaying as a solo. You don't want an over-exuberant sort of person. And so I put the question to him, and we had lunch, and the next thing was to ease him into the cockpit.
I actually love that, Jonathan. Do you have any questions, Baz?
I'm just thinking of some.
Now, I've just thought one there. You know when you said, well, let's go here in the last year's airshow programme, you're in the Royal Navy.
That's right, senior service.
Yeah. What, did you actually do any flying with the Royal Navy?
I joined to fly. I joined at the age of 18 for the sole purpose of flying. And I didn't want to join the RAF. I couldn't think anything more boring than flying from runways the whole time, and much more fun to fly from an aircraft carrier. So I joined in 1965, and you flew Hunters in that as part of your training, and that's when I sort of fell in love with the Hunter aircraft. And then from there I went on to a thing called the Sea Vixen, and the one had been flying recently, a Finnish one called Foxy Lady. So I flew the Sea Vixen, and from that on to the Phantom, and did a couple of tours on HMS Eagle, got as far south and east as New Zealand and Australia were there, and Hong Kong and Singapore, most of the Mediterranean, and also out to the east coast of the States as well. So I've got to travel around the world and had a good time and got paid for it.
Oh, that is absolutely brilliant.
Because I mean, here in Sunderland, like every air show, everybody like comes together from like no matter where you are, like plane spotters, train spotters. I mean, Demeanour to me is like just amazing how they do it. I mean, I like the colour scheme, like reminds me of a bit of a toucan.
Yeah, I can see that. But I'm not doing seafront air shows because you get the general public coming to the air show, whereas you go to an airfield, if you go to React or to Lucas or one of the sort of military air bases, what you're going to get there are the pure aviation enthusiasts. Whereas when you go to a seafront one, then you get the general public, and the people going, okay, let's go and see what an air show is like. And quite a lot of the air shows on seafronts are free as well. And you get a much bigger audience, and that sort of audience tends to appreciate, I think, anyway, an airplane like the Demeanour with the colour scheme. It's not the boring military battleship grey or camouflage or anything like that. The whole idea is that it's all about showmanship. It's all about having fun for me and giving fun to other people.
Well, we've just been asked a question on Facebook from our listeners, which is Jimmy Cook, who's listened to us this evening. Good evening,
all
Jimmy.
All the way from Wales.
He's just asked us if a return to Bournemouth is likely, and also what is it like seeing the massive crowds from the cockpit at air shows like Sunderland and Bournemouth. What's it actually like looking at the public from the cockpit?
Well, first of all, I hope I get back to Bournemouth. I love being there. It's a great display venue, as good as Sunderland. And you need the crowd there. You've got to have something to focus on. And one of my passes, I'm low and slow with the canopy opening and waving to people. I'm only 100, 150 metres away from them, so I can see them waving. And it's again, as I said, it's showmanship, and you like to be appreciated, and so you need the crowds to do that.